Thank you so much for being here, ladies. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for all of the leaders, in fact, of WazirX to connect. And I'm so grateful that you could make the time for this. Before we begin the session, I would like to introduce our speakers to our guests today. I'm starting with Vishakha. Vishakha is a former Indian actress turned film producer and entrepreneur. She started her journey in the film industry in 2007. She spent a significant number of years producing award-winning films like Peddlers, Haramkhor, Munata, Adventure. Vishakha was also the winner of Women Entrepreneur Quest Challenge in 2017, which was hosted by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. She now strives to provide the country's youth with game-changing platforms that serve as a safe platform for art to thrive. Breaking the stereotypes in the world of crypto, Vishakha Singh is currently the co-founder and VP of WazirX NFT marketplace under the WazirX brand. She also has a two-time successful startup co-founder who has actively worked in the fan engagement space for the past 5 years. Thank you so much, Vishakha, for joining us today.
The pleasure is absolutely mine, Raily. I'm just so excited that I'm meeting all these amazing women under the WazirX brand. I think we're doing great, and let's get going. I want to hear about everybody else who's here.
Yes. I'll move on to Priyanka now. Priyanka Sharma heads the PR and social communications at WazirX, India's leading crypto exchange. Her aim is to leverage storytelling and create crypto-focused conversations, education, and bust misconceptions. Priyanka has also been featured as one of the 100 most inspirational women in blockchain in India. That's fantastic, Priyanka. With over 7 years of experience of working with startups, she has handled community management to employer branding, partnerships, and marketing. Of work, she enjoys kickboxing and going all in at a low stakes poker table. Thank you so much for joining us, Priyanka.
Thanks, Raily. Really excited to be a part of it.
Moving on to Disha. Disha was born and raised in Calcutta. She's an engineer and has almost a decade of experience in the tech space. She brings with her experience across a variety of sectors, including health and entertainment, and now she's passionate about technology and loves solving problems. She also loves reading and is a big foodie who loves to cook. Thank you so much for being with us, Disha. It's so.
Hi guys. I'm so happy to be here amongst these beautiful ladies. Really excited to be a part of this.
Moving on to Soumya. Soumya comes from a small town in Kerala and has been living in Bangalore for a long time now. She even brings with her over a decade of experience in a variety of roles within HR in big corporations and startups. She joined WazirX as an HR manager and has been instrumental in growing the team 6x in 6 months. That's phenomenal. She leads HR operations, business partnering, and compensation and benefits at WazirX. Thank you so much for being with us today, Soumya.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Raily. Have such an amazing team. It's really a pleasure to be part of this.
Likewise. Last but not the very least, I am so pleased to introduce Shelly to you. Shelly hails from the north of Bengal and has been living in Delhi for the past 17 years. She started her career with a startup in the F&B space and then moved on to AMX, where she has been in an operations role for more than 11 years. She's currently senior manager for the custom happiness team at WazirX. Hi, Shelly. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hello, everyone again. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored.
I have a lot of questions to ask all of you people, but I think I would like to start with Priyanka. So Priyanka, what I want to ask you is, what motivated you to start your career with a startup? You have been a key contributor in bringing WazirX to where it is today. What is it that motivates you to continue to build for crypto?
Well, in whatever limited years of work experience that I have, I've only worked with startups, and I love the sheer thrill and the of course, the ensuing chaos that comes with it, taking a product which is in such a like a nascent stage, like, in a seed stage, and taking it to execution, and then eventually, the growth part of it. So I did that with Crowdfire. And when Nishal, Sameer, and Sid were building WazirX, it only made sense to kind of, be a part of this as well. Um, the yeah, and because I was also involved with crypto even before WazirX happened. I got my first crypto in around 2015, and then of course, went on buying more and more in 2017 onwards. So when it only made sense to help build a crypto exchange that is on a mission to make crypto accessible to everyone in India. And it's so heartening to see that we have I mean, today we have more than 10 million users who love using WazirX, and we have provided them with a solution to invest in this alternative asset class. But we are just getting started.
Oh, we are. Thank you so much for answering that. And I think it's been a phenomenal feat. I mean, the past year or so, what we've been able to achieve and the way we've been grown, it's fantastic. Thanks, Priyanka. My next question is to Vishakha. And Vishakha, I've always been very excited to ask you a lot of these because you've been so inspirational. But we want to know what it is like to be an entrepreneur. And when I say that, I think, the entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, I think are still fairly less, right? So what is it like to be an entrepreneur? And we'd love to know about a little bit about your journey so far and what made you choose NFTs.
So, I think it's very difficult to answer why did I choose an entrepreneurial journey. I think it stems from my very core nature of being independent. Um, I'm a very congenial, adaptable, accommodating person, but I don't like to be told what to do, And when I was a kid, sorry, yeah. So when I was a kid, I used to think that 9 to 5 jobs are boring. So I thought it was very cool to say, oh, I'm not going to do a 9 to 5 job. I'm going to do my own startup and I'm going to have my own business. Little did I know that it would not be just 9 to 5. It would be a 24/7 job, But I think life had its own plans. I mean, I ended up acting, I ended up producing films. But I think one common thread between all my journeys was that I was, basically leading my own journey all the time. So when I was an actor, I was a product. When I became a film producer, I had a macro view instead of being a puppet to an entire, film scene. I was the puppet master there, in terms of being the producer. So from there on, I understood that each entrepreneurial journey or each project or each film that you produce, the basic fundamentals are same in anything that you do. And I think that's where my interest, after having a successful film, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and then my fifth film, which I produced completely on my own, I kind of diverted my gaze from just not just films, but to another. I just thought to myself, what else is out there? And thanks to all the great coders out there, all these great, all those, engineers and people from STEM background who made these great tools for non-STEM people like me to become an entrepreneur. And 2017 is when I started my journey in this space. And with NFTs, what has happened is that when I started off with my first startup that I co-founded with Sandesh, it was something called Iconic Bot, and it was a chatbot tool for celebrities. From there on, Sandesh and I built a SaaS tool for Instagram influencers where, you could answer something like 400 comments, especially influencers could answer 400 comments within 20 minutes. And these replies would be completely unique, based on their persona, thanks to AI and machine learning. Now, that was also great. But the pandemic hit us, and we knew that we wanted to be in the community and fan engagement space. And I think NFTs became a natural progression because in the pandemic, the buzz about the conversation around blockchain increased, the conversation around NFTs increased, and we were just plain lucky that Nishchal happened to be Sandesh's mentor as well. And it was, I think, the perfect marriage of crypto and NFTs, and there's really not been any, looking back since then, since the last 8 months or so.
And yes, NFTs have had a phenomenal journey since. Yes, I think that's fantastic, Vishakha, so inspiring. Moving on to Disha. Disha, my question to you is, women in tech are still around in this country. It's very unfortunate. I want to know what inspired you to follow STEM. What was it like when you were growing up? Did you face any stereotyping or bias
Sure, that's a very interesting question, really. Um, all right. So, as a child, right, I was a very happy-go-lucky child. I was never forced by my family to, that you need to be a rank holder and you need to study in a certain way. They had always left me independent. Like, you do your thing, whatever you want to pursue, you do. However, I was a very average student because giving all that freedom, all I would do is just play, and play, and not really concentrate on my studies. So then one fine day, my mom and I we thought I was in standard eighth, and she said that I think you need a home tutor. Let's get you a home tutor, and maybe let's see whether you can at least improve your studies. So we did that, and this teacher, he would actually just tell me that read this entire page and try to understand it. If you don't understand it, you tell me, and I'm going to explain it to you. And what happened post that was there was not even one occasion that I had to ask somebody else that I did not understand this. I just started loving certain subjects. I found a new love. I started loving physics, mathematics, computer science, and it was something that I could do at my free time. If I just study, I found that it's a very interesting subject because if you spend 1 hour understanding a concept, a logic, then you probably do not need to spend too much time mugging things over and over again. And that's
Right.
why I fell in love with those subjects. And since then, there was no looking back in my future. I knew what I wanted to do. So my inspiration to pursue a career in engineering actually came from this interest back in class 8, this incident. I think the next question that you wanted to also know is about the kind of bias. Now, that's a very tricky question because it's going to be very different for each individual. However, for me, I was part of a very supportive family where my brother and I we had been given equal opportunities. There was no bias in terms of okay, she's a daughter or he's a boy, so we need to give them different sort of opportunities. That was never the case, at least in my family, and I was truly blessed in that way. But when I chose to do engineering, I wanted to pursue it in a different city in Nagpur, which was more than 1,000 kilometers away from my hometown. And that was when I saw that my family is somehow uh, facing a sort of reluctance. They were not very willing to send their daughter so far from themselves. They were sort of, I mean, it was more of a protective instinct. They were not very sure whether I'll be safe so far away from them. And that was the only bias. I knew that that would probably not happen for my brother because they would be sure that he's going to handle himself. That was the only conflict, and we somehow as a family, as a unit, we decided that we'll have to do that because if I have that kind of inspiration, aspiration as a girl child, then they need to let me nurture it. So they pushed me, and that's how I started my career in engineering.
That's lovely to hear, and I think that is a concern a lot of parents have when we are growing up and we are trying to, move on to other cities and trying to live all our own. I think the first time I tried to live on my own was when I went for my master's in the UK, and that was the first time I was actually taking a flight on my own. And my parents were a nervous wreck. I was a nervous wreck.
Absolutely.
I was like so scared because we had a long layover in Amsterdam. So yeah, I think that's a concern that a lot of Indian parents share, and with reason, I suppose.
Yes,
But yeah,
absolutely. But
I'm
you
so
know
glad.
what?
Hmm.
Funnily, my parents, my mom only came to drop me to Nagpur. That's all. And there were always these session breaks, two in a year. I would always travel back alone. So when they left me, now they were like, okay, now you grow up, you become independent on your own, do your thing. I mean, that was the kind of freedom that they'd given me, which is absolutely incredible. I think that is what I feel that other parents, individuals should learn from. I mean, we are no less capable of protecting ourselves. I mean, we can probably empower our fellow, girlfriends or the daughters, but not restrict them. That will not really work in our favor.
Certainly. and I hope we all go towards. I think we're going there already, but I'm
Absolutely.
hoping we're all empowered. We're going to be empowered more. Okay, my next question is to Shelly. Shelly, you want to know about your work so far, and I was particularly interested in, you worked with a very big corporation before this, and what is it that motivated you to join the crypto space, to join WazirX? So if you could just tell us a little about that.
Yeah, I think you shared a little during my introduction. So I started my career in 2008 with a startup company. They were into online food ordering, and it was called a place to dine.com. It's similar to Zomato, Swiggy, and Uber Eats that we have now.
Got
I
it.
worked there as a relationship manager in CS and marketing profile. The concept was very new for India at that point of time because Zomato and Swiggy and all, they just started in the last few years, right?
Correct.
2008 was too early, yeah. So since then the company they had to shut down because India was not ready. They moved to US and they're operating under Zappler, the name of Zappler right now. um, in 2010 I moved to American Express. I worked in different roles and different departments,
Mm-hmm.
starting with email servicing, and then moved to fraud risk and new accounts. I worked
Got
there for
it.
11 years. Yeah, that is my overall experience with Amex. So you asked me what motivated me to join WazirX. Uh,
Yeah, a big corporation to shift to WazirX, yes.
yeah, yeah, it was definitely a big move. So to be honest, WazirX came to me at a point when I was looking for a change. I wanted a complete virtual work environment because my work required me to stay in Delhi away from my family alone, right? And I mean, that is one of the main reasons. Besides that, the other reasons are WazirX is definitely a fast-growing company, and there is a lot of opportunities, and a lot of growth opportunities will definitely come up here. Needless to say, the people and the technology that we are working for.
Thank you, Shelly. Thank you so much for telling us about your journey. My next question is to Soumya. Um, Soumya, we'd love to know what made you choose the HR profession. And, I think you're one of the very first HRs in the crypto space. So, in India, that is. So, we want to know about your journey and what it is like to be an HR in the crypto space.
Okay. So, choosing HR as a profession for me, even very early on when I was doing my graduation, it kind of felt like a no-brainer because, like Disha just said, how it felt right for her, with physics and science as a stream itself. For me, the disconnect was very obvious early on, right? Because that was just not something I could really see myself doing, and then the hunt kind of began as to where I want to go. And then graduation happened, post graduation happened, and I got this opportunity to do an internship with a firm in the HR space. And for me, that kind of sealed the deal because working there as part of this very small team that's handling almost 700 plus people account, that gave me this opportunity to really see the kind of importance that HR as a function adds. And I know, even today, as a function, HR really does get a lot of bad rap, and more often than not, it is very ignored. And whatever the reasons for that may be, this experience really helped me as a person understand the importance that people function really plays in an organization. Because, at the end of the day, I feel dealing with people is the most difficult thing there is, right? And that is very challenging, and I really love that challenge. And that is because when it comes down to it, all of the structures, the processes, and everything aside, at the end of the day, it's all about managing people's expectations, right? Their aspirations, and really doing that while keeping the company's intent and goals and objectives in mind, and aligning the both of them is I feel incredibly challenging. So this is very well kept me excited, and the journey continues. Let's see how that goes. But Riley, to your second question on this whole thing in the crypto space, well, crypto, yes, did really explode in these last 2 years, right? Especially after the pandemic began, like Vishakha said. And for me, being in this space, seeing this kind of growth and really being an early entrant, when I joined WazirX, we were just about to begin scaling, right? And from there, back when I joined, we were 30, and less than 8 months later, we had achieved like a 6x growth. So being part of this journey has been incredibly exciting. And this is just something, this I don't know, is very personal to me, right? As an HR, you get to deal with a lot of people, and you see a lot of people who are incredibly passionate about what they do, right? Their work means a lot to them. They're very invested, and they want to really get it right. And in crypto, you meet all of those people, but they also come with this passion towards the cause. And this is not
Yes.
something you get to see in a lot of other industries. They're invested in blockchain. They want to take it further. They understand it's the future of finance, and they want to take crypto adoption higher. So it's not just the work that they bring to the table; it's the passion of what they want to do, and where they want to take this entire business. So for me, that has really kept set this entire experience apart from everything that I've done before. Right? And the kind of talent that we see, really young, really dynamic, and the space itself being so dynamic, I think it increases the challenge of the function itself, because you want to keep people who are incredibly talented, motivated in a space that's so heavily uncertain, right? So yeah, that's that for me.
Wow. I'm sure it's been quite the experience. Um, I think we'll hear from you more. But before we do, I have a question. That when I was researching, and I think the second part of the show will probably, I'll ask you a lot of these questions. Research the numbers, the statistics, they're so heartbreaking sometimes. And some of my questions, I want to kind of, talk to you about the trend and what you think about it. My first question again is to Disha. So Disha, while I was, reading up about the statistics of women representation in technology, it's surprisingly poor today. And women make up for only 28.8% in the tech workforce, which is worldwide. And in India, the representation is only 26%. I wanted to ask you, what according to you is the problem there? And how do you think we can encourage more women to take up STEM?
Sure, Ellie. That's a very heavy question, to be very honest.
It's
And there are
3:30.
so many reasons, I think, because of the numbers that you see and we've experienced. I mean, we were a batch of probably 60 students with less than 10 or 15 female students when we were pursuing engineering. So the numbers absolutely are correct.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many reasons. Like, as we look back to the reason why I said that, my family felt reluctance while sending me out because they were insecure. Now, not all families probably would feel the same way, or move past that obstacle of reluctance. And I think the problem is that, let alone further studies, there are the percentage of women who have pursued education up till class 12, even that is shockingly low.
That's true.
And as a consequence, the number trickles down, not only in STEM, but I'm sure in other careers as well. Um, Now there are so many things that makes us feel that these things are changing. Now, very small example, my domestic help. I remember when we were kids, and my domestic help would have children, daughters. They would only have this notion that I need to collect money to get them married off. But contrary to that notion, now we have domestic help. Why I'm giving you this example is because the problem is at the grassroots level. Because
Yes.
the urban cities, the children who've grown up and got proper education, they must be still doing fine. But yeah, so coming back to the domestic help now, I've seen so far that there are people who asked me that, what do I do? I want my daughter to get educated. I've put her to this such and such school. I'm giving her fees. So their primary motive has now become educating their girl daughter, which is a great step in tomorrow's future, because once, only and only if they get educated, they can probably go on to become take a profession in marketing like Priyanka, or probably take a profession like HR in Soumya, or become an entrepreneur like Vishakha, or have a very corporate sort of a feel like Shelly, or probably develop an interest like me in engineering. But that option needs to be open for them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, And also, just to sort of relate and sort of put more light on what the problem is, I'll share a very small story, a very small incident that I had a few years ago in my previous company. We were having lunch. So, an entire group of, say, 10 or 12 people, we were all having lunch together. My manager was also there with me. It was a mixed group, and again, the minority, there were just two girls, me and another friend. But we really don't feel that way because the colleagues and the guys have been very supportive. So, now comes the interesting part. What I had got for my tiffin was actually chicken curry. I had self prepared it from my home and I had bought it. I love chicken, so I was having and we were all sharing it. And walks in a guy, he's also our colleague from another team. He comes and he was also going to have tiffin with us. And then he says that, Disha, you're having chicken, that too being a girl. And that was shocking. And I was like, I was stunned. What did you just say? I did not know whether that was a joke, was that something that was funny, or that came from an earnest space. And unfortunately, it did come from an earnest space. From the background that he was from, uh, the women in the family did not consume non vegetarian food. And here I bring the point that if there are women who do not have the freedom to choose what they can eat or what they can wear, then choosing a career of their choice, that becomes a very far-fetched question you know
It does.
so that's the experience that I wanted to share with you guys, and it's a very small minority. I know that in our country there are many vegetarians, but that was not the point. The point was about having the choice, about having the freedom. Yeah, that's my answer to your question.
Thanks, Disha. Yeah, I mean, I think we experience this in all the walks of life. Uh, that's a very, very surprising incident, but I think all of us have faced it with the very similar.
Yeah.
Um, Vishakha, I wanted to ask you about another, something that is very basic, particularly to the Eastern society. I don't know if it is or if it extends to the West as well, but there is a very high level of gender stereotyping in our society when we are growing up. Do you think that contributes to bias creation and, ultimately the career paths or what we end up doing?
I think it does. See, the challenge here is, when Disha mentioned about her parents being a bit apprehensive about sending her far away, it wasn't because she cannot take care of herself. It is because we are unsure of the society or the people or the living conditions around her. Would she be safe there? And I'll give you two examples now. Um, and I may probably be digressing in terms of giving examples and telling stories here.
That's
But
absolutely.
when uh, when you decide to study in a new place. Let me give you another example. We'll just stick to, otherwise there'll be too many stories here. But the thing is very simple. We are a product of the society that we live in, and it is for us to break the biases. I mean, we all have to acknowledge here that we all come from a position of privilege. We've had the privilege of getting educated and even being exposed to various cultures, etc., grown up in bigger cities or probably traveled. But the fact is that at the grassroots level, these problems do exist.
They do.
They do. Now, when Disha just mentioned about about eating non-veg, right? And that colleague of hers actually asking her, "You're a girl." Now, this has actually happened. Now, I come from a position of privilege, but I do have relatives who are educated professors whose own daughters in Banaras were not given ghee because they're girls, which is bizarre considering, we're all after at the end of the day, even though it's an extended family, different places, different opinions, different perspectives. How do we change that? And in terms of getting biases, now, I remember Sandesh and I, we were hiring some people for our previous organization, and we wanted people, how a startup functions. We want people to work 24/7, and it was a crazy way of working earlier. Now, of course, um, thanks to Soumya and everybody, we have a bit of work-life balance here. But in our previous startups, it was a chaotic way of working. We just wanted to deliver. That's it. So when we were hiring, I remember Sandesh had given out certain requisitions, and we had 26 applicants. Out of these 26 applicants, 12 were women. The interview was supposed to happen on a Saturday. And on Saturday morning, 7 out of the 12 women messaged Sandesh saying, "We have a family emergency." Now, what does it say? It means that, of course, I mean, as people as talent managers, we were of course taken aback because the idea was to give equal opportunity. But the challenge here is that the burden of taking care of the house probably rests more on the woman, and these women probably had to take out time and give that priority instead of their work. So these biases do come into play, and I think what the only way we can break this is by literally talking more about this. We have to, constantly have these conversations where we have to tell women that it is okay to say no at home as well. If you can
Yes.
say no at your office place, you can say no at home. You don't have to be the martyr. You're not going to get extra brownie points. Uh, get those extra 2 hours rest. You don't really have to work hard. Set your priorities, and these conversations need to happen, and we need to have more role models. Otherwise, these biases will continue to play in.
They will, and I think that also you just shed light on a very important factor. I mean, women representation overall in the workforce is so severely challenged today. And I read a report a couple of days back which said that initially, in order to reach equality, it was the predicted time was 99 years, and after the pandemic, it's kind of worsened to 135 years today. So yeah, I mean, coming back to the responsibilities, the roles that we have, there's a lot to be done on the home front, in our personal lives. And until unless that gets sorted, I don't think we'll ever be able to really step out. And again, we probably come from places of privilege. But speaking of women, and there are many. Thank you for shedding light on that, Vishakha. I think that was very insightful. And my next question is to Shelly, and it is around the discussion, the topic that we've just been discussing. So the pandemic, it's been reported that the pandemic has been very, very tough for women in the workforce, right? And women are dropping out. Some are considering stepping down to take roles with lesser responsibilities. One, I wanted to ask you again, how has it been for you? And it's a problem. So how do you think we can solve this? Over to you.
Yeah, so women are now significantly more burnt out than ever before. Yeah, most of
Yes.
the responsibilities at home they fall into women, and which can be homely duties as well as children and elderly care. So I too have had some exposure to the exhaustion, but it can't be compared to the women who are taking care of children and elders at home. And your next the next question was, how do I think we can solve this? So I don't know about solving, but yeah, few things that can definitely help in this situation is if we focus in modeling work-life boundaries, right? Like
Hmm.
Vishakha mentioned, so we should have work-life boundaries, supporting employee well-being and ensuring that performance is evaluated based on results. So, and when leaders they support employees' well-being and prioritize diversity and inclusion, employees are happier, less burned out, and less likely to consider leaving the jobs. We also need to track representation in hiring and promotion, I believe, and create more connected and inclusive workspace.
Thanks, Shelly. Just, there are other questions, but I wanted to come back to you all and ask you, how do you think the men in our lives can solve for this? How can they be allies and really help us solve this problem? Um, Anyone?
Yeah, we really need, yeah, I mean, women they definitely need the support of their husbands and family members. I really think believe that. And in fact, like I said, right, like what the reason why I joined WazirX is because I was looking for a virtual work environment. And I think with pandemic now, because we have been working in this virtual environment. I mean, women are asked, I mean, if they can look for virtual environment, work environment where they can support the family as well as they can stand up for themselves. So I think we do need support from our husbands, a better house, and families definitely.
Virtual or not, don't you think
Uh,
the sharing the load campaign that Ariel ran,
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
you think
yeah,
that is something that
definitely.
we really need to bring, right?
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
Adding on to what Shelly has said here, I think men can start with acknowledging the privilege that they have in the first place. And
yeah,
yes, men can, like in regular families, it's absolutely okay for men to go and fetch a glass of water by themselves. It's absolutely okay. They can do that.
mhm,
And the most important thing is, again, coming back to the privilege part, that if you're a heterosexual cisgendered man in India, you're already way up the ladder here. Okay, so I mean,
Absolutely.
you don't have a lot of things to worry about. um Second thing is, there are a lot of things, subconsciously there's a lot of bias in regular families. I mean, even though I come from a place of privilege, but there are small little things that I keep noticing. I've had discussions about it with my brother, with my dad, and now I have these discussions with my husband as well. So again, yeah, this is where again sharing the load becomes of utmost importance. And they we also need to normalize men helping with things in the house. And actually, wait, I just made this mistake again. They need to contribute in the household. You know, you doing chores in your at your own home is not helping. It's
Yeah,
contributing, it's
correct.
doing your own bit. So, and we need to
yeah.
start normalizing this, so that it again at the end makes the lives of women in the house a little more, livable.
I'm right there with you. I think we all
Really,
agree.
actually, even I want to add. I mean, as you said, right, the importance of men uh, in the advancement of our careers. Like, I would definitely, my parents, like my dad, they allowed me to pursue a career, or have the education so that I can build a career. But somehow, the power today also lies in the hands of the family in which you get married into,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they feel that they have the right to either allow you to work or not allow to work. And I think all of us, we come from really privileged backgrounds again, where that discussion never came up. Okay, like, it was never a question whether I need to continue working or not, but there are people who think that way. And the only person who can break that, because there's a generation gap, probably the in-laws will not understand. So the person who has to come and take a stand is the husband. He has
Correct.
to come and put in a word that, if I am working, if I am going out and earning our bread, uh, why can she also not do that? She's educated, she can do that. Why did she even study? Why did she put those efforts to educate herself into such a professional career? And that's when things will change, because that's, I'll give you an example of my husband. uh, Now, engineering is a very demanding field. There have been occasions where I have come back home at 7 a.m. in the morning. There have been occasions when, staying in Bombay, I have caught the last local back at home. And I don't think it would have been possible for me to be at this, junction of my career if my husband was not there supporting me. If he would have, created issues like, you're away, you need to come back, or something of that sort, I would probably not be able to contribute to my work as efficiently as I have because of his support. So I need other people to, understand that you guys, as husbands, play a very important role to somehow carve your wife's career as well. That
Hmm.
needs to be
Mm,
understood.
yeah.
Very
Very,
true.
very well said, Disha. If I may quickly just add in there, I remember
Please do.
when I started acting. Now, acting, of course, is people just have this perception of this being a very unsafe world. And I remember my father saying, I mean, I'm a postgraduate from Indian Institute of Mass Comm. It's one of the most premier institutes in the country. And there I was, leading my internships and my job offers and pursuing acting. And I was lucky enough to get good roles, Uh, but I remember my relatives being very, very skeptical and everybody calling my parents. And I remember my father saying, look, he spoke to me and said, you I've given you the basic education, you know the right and wrong, you know when to walk out, you know everything is dependent on you, and I trust you. So that was one thing that I've always kept, you know, as my guiding force. And like, I know what to do. I know what my limitations or boundaries that I set for myself. But when I became an actor, uh, and I've been with my fiance for over 2 decades now. You know, we've been childhood sweethearts. The one thing that most of my people in film sets would ask him, saying, "How does it feel to allow your girlfriend to work?" And I remember he and I both would be so miffed because he'd be like, "What do you mean by allow? Who am I to give her any freedom? It's hers." And that is what I always argue with. And I think this is something women need to understand. Yeah, the freedom is ours. We are our own independent entities. I think we are doing men or our in-laws a favor by letting them participate in our decision making. So they have the right to contribute in the decision making, but they're not the decision makers. And you're not being a bad bahu or a bad family member by asserting your boundaries. And I think we women need to stop feeling guilty about these aspects, you know, and we need to be a little more selfish, enough of being selfless, and as I said, enough of martyrdom, you know.
So true. And I think we are kind of wired to feel more guilt the entire...
वो तो हम, you know, we take kilogram में ले लेके, you know. Yeah.
So
I know.
the entire point of sharing load, I think more often than not, many of us are guilty of not asking for that help. Right? By
Absolutely.
default, it becomes a thing in our head that this is my responsibility. I should be doing it. If I'm not doing it, then I'm not good enough, or not fit to be here. So I think this destigmatizing this whole thing that it's all your responsibility should like really go away, and we should feel okay to ask for help. That would definitely be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think just this whole idea of just realizing that you have to communicate and ask for what you need. You need help, ask for it. You're not okay with it, say it. You know, you want clarity, you know, go ahead and demand it. But be vocal about it, because what's the worst? You know, if you're already in a very negative space, what's the worst to continue to be there? That one time when you actually ask a question can actually lead to something absolutely new.
Certainly can. I hope a lot of people are listening to us today, and they are empowered to make these decisions and ask the right questions. I think my video is stuck, but I'll move on to the next question. And my next question is to Soumya. Again, comes back to the pandemic world, and we've all gone into a remote working. I think the entire world has shifted into a hybrid mode of work. But what's been very unique for WazirX is that we have set up ourselves in the remote fashion. Like, our entire team is remote first. I wanted to ask you about what it is like managing a remote workforce, and how are you addressing the problems? What are problems that are coming about from this model of work particularly?
All right. Okay. So I think we all had to shift from an all office setting to an all remote setting, and this literally happened overnight. So while it was easy for many of us to just pick up our laptops and move from office to home and just start connecting, especially the IT sector, I think was really blessed in that. But adjusting to it really and adopting all of our practices to suit a workforce that is now completely remote has been extremely challenging. But thankfully, we were able to identify and fix a lot of issues that cropped up. I think one or rather two things that we still, it's a work in progress, we're still identifying and building as we go, is collaboration, right? Because no matter what, when all of us were in office, I think we largely took communication for granted, right? We were sitting next to each other, things being discussed in the open, and all of us, one way or the other, were on the same page. But that is definitely not happening in remote setting, right? And especially because a lot of us are kind of in this asynchronous working style, that it becomes difficult for us to understand what's happening in the team largely, and sometimes difficult for us to communicate what's really going on. And this creates issues in alignment. So aligning all of our efforts, and this, again, I'm sure everybody here understands, as managers, creating that kind of investment in your team members and really setting those short and long-term goals, and ensuring that we as a team, as a company, are aligned to this and continuously towards it. this is really taking a beating, and it's definitely a work in progress. And I think we are learning new every day and trying and putting more practices in place, and hopefully we'll get there. But currently, with everything that has happened, I would probably call out these two as major areas where we need to focus on. And being women in this kind of environment, and really that's something, I mean, I second what Shelly said, right? When this explosion happened, we were able to provide this opportunity of work from remote permanently to everybody, right? And we have people from really like different corners of the country, and and women, right? I think one of the reasons why we were, even though our numbers are not where it should be, we were able to really improve our diversity on that front, because we were able to give this opportunity for most people, right? And I know many of my friends are still living in fear as to, okay, when is my company going to call me back? What do I do then? And all of these questions come up. We being permanent remote, I think, really settles a lot of fear. So that's a great thing.
Yes, I'm sure it helps a lot. I want to take a cue from what Soumya just said. The problem of collaboration. I want to ask Shelly, because Shelly, you're a part of managing one of the biggest teams in in the company, right? What is it like? How are you collaborating in the remote setting?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm super excited to be part of this team and leading it. So we let our colleagues own their responsibilities and perform their work in tandem with their team members. Instead of working in silos and then meeting later to evaluate their work, our team
Correct.
members collaborate continuously to make sure we are on the right track. Personally, for me, the key is to create a supportive work environment. Right?
Correct.
By listening to and learning from team members, we can help each other reach our goals. Yeah. So we ensure to communicate expectations clearly and also encourage our team members to brainstorm and innovate.
I think what we heard from both Soumya and Shelly is communication is key. So we'll have to find ways to really communicate, right? Okay. Again, coming back to Soumya, this is again going back to the trends that we were discussing, but I want to know what you think is a way of achieving gender parity in the workforce.
Okay. Going back to the research that you shared, Riley, and with all the experience that all of us have, we know that we are a really, really long way off of actually achieving gender parity at workforce, right? While that is a reality, it makes it all the more important for us to take all the right steps right now. And I think a lot of efforts are being made by different companies across industries to encourage participation, to improve diversity, and bring women back to work, right? Two areas that I think we need to really focus on are, hiring and career development. More often than not, women kind of get left out at the stage of hiring, right? Because for the gender and for whatever other reasons, the unconscious bias that most of our colleagues have, like Disha said, right? These are educated people, but then, they have all of these thoughts in their head, which absolutely make no sense. But then, it is there, and that one way or the other kind of affects a lot of decisions that we make. So this becomes roadblocks for women just to get that entry into the company, and then becomes roadblocks again when they're trying to move up the ladder. So while we do everything that we do to kind of remove those, unconscious biases, and remove those stereotypes and really create a support system for women at work, I think that's definitely a huge step. But one other thing that I really want to call out here is, and I personally believe that this is a hindrance for a lot of women who are trying to come back to the workforce, is this whole obsession that people across industries have with career gaps, right? Every time a resume comes up and you see, okay, there is a 1 year gap, or there's a 6 month gap, or 2 months, or sorry, 2 years, this person is away from the industry. What happened? Right? It inherently, makes the person think that for whatever reason, this person is not focused about their work, or becomes unreliable or undependable for some reason, right? And again, at that stage, right, skill goes out of the window, everything goes out, and the person doesn't even get a chance. Right? So really making sure that merit and skill are all that is considered when you hire for, I think is going to be a great help in bridging this gap. Now, I don't see that. I mean, I'm not saying that only for women, right? Because, I mean, just a random example of childcare, for instance, right? Imagine there's a requirement between the husband and a wife, there's a discussion who should take a step back. By default, more or less, more often than not, the responsibility comes on the woman, right? Because somewhere that as a woman, it's easy for you to justify that gap than a man, right? And now here we are creating these hindrances and these barriers for ourselves, right? Why can't the man take, career break? Because it's responsibility for us to, kind of share childcare, right? So again, the way society looks at a career gap in a woman's resume, I think it's brutal when you actually look at it in a man's resume. So kind of bring it into an equal forum. I think this will encourage a lot more women to continue working, while probably encouraging a lot more men to take up those responsibilities. And at some point very soon, we would have a society that would kind of normalize this and prioritize mental health, prioritize our responsibilities, and everything that we do in our careers, our individual passion, right? We should be okay to pursue whatever that we want without fearing how it's going to affect our career.
Yes.
So yeah.
Absolutely true. Priyanka, my next question is to you. And, again, my research kind of it points towards the fact that DI is something that when companies really do have DI initiatives, it's something that is perceived to be as favorable by all employees and the workforce, right? But at the same time, research also points to the fact that allocation of resources for DEI initiatives is yet to catch up to the intent. And I wanted to ask you, what is your take on this? Are we really all talk and no action even today?
No, we are definitely not all talk. Looking around everywhere, efforts are being taken across various organizations and across various forums to ensure that there is more equity, more inclusion in various arenas, and we are making improvements, however incremental it might be. But I feel it's more like a chicken and egg problem also, because it goes above and beyond corporations and everything. It's this diversity problem, this inclusion problem is also tied to a lot of socio-cultural factors in the society. So before, most importantly, first we need to start talking about why diversity has to be taken seriously. Like, why is it so important? Why is minority representation so important today? I don't promote hiring minority or women, just for the heck of it, but we need to understand the impact, or the, what kind of, why is it important, and what kind of impact it's creating. So for example, we all keep talking about how there are less women at the top, right? But what is the reason behind it? I'm pretty confident that it's not like women don't want to be a part of the CXO club. I'm pretty sure if given the opportunity, women would want to be in that CXO club, shatter the glass ceiling. But there are lots of again, the lot of biases and lot of hindrances in the way which are stopping women from being at the top. For example, Soumya, you rightly pointed out this parenting thing. So I want to highlight this. So today, like in India, we have a 26-week maternity leave, right? Now, a lot of organizations, they are coming up with period leave. I know my periods leave me absolutely immobile for 2 days. I pop like 3 pills a day. I understand the pain, how it is like, and the intent is there. There's all the right intent to help female employees. But all this is very good, amazing. I applaud such initiatives. But I know I don't know how it's going to be perceived, but I also, as a woman, I also feel threatened by all this. Okay, like I feel it makes women less desirable employees. Why? Because what are the counterpart policies for men? For example, what about paternity? What are we doing about this? In fact, this lack of such things, it conveys the message that men don't need to be involved in raising their baby. In fact, and that also leads to absentee dads, right?
Right.
So all this is again, small things. And why again paternity leave is not important or not taken seriously is because somehow it's okay for women to take a step back in the career, right? Because for women in India, at least, working has always been a choice. Right? You don't want to work, getting married is always an option, but that shouldn't be an option.
Exactly.
the responsibility has to be equal, because that creates equal footing. And we need now how do now again the problem is, for all these things to come, we need a lot of law changes and all, right? But again, you look at our parliament, there are barely like less than 15% of our lawmakers are women. So who's going to make laws for us, if if we're not represented there? So there are a lot of problems here and there, and we need to solve it like on a mass level. But to answer your question, it's certainly not all talk anymore.
It's not, but I think we are probably a while away to catch up to the intent, rather than the amount of talks that there is there, and particularly around this month, right? I mean, there's a lot of conversation that happens around this month, and a lot of people forget. I know there are companies who are actually taking pledges, and they make goals, and they actively pursue it. But I think at the end of it, we really need to, like you said, go and solve more grassroots problems, like 15%, less than 15% of women who are lawmakers. How will they understand, what women need, right? I thank you, Priyanka. That was very well answered. Vishakha, I'm going to come back to you now, and I want to end, this in a positive note. I want you to tell us what we can do to have more women entrepreneurs, and what advice do you have for aspiring women entrepreneurs of the country?
Well, in terms of advice, I don't know, just develop thick skin. Develop thick skin. Don't really care two hoots about what people say. When I started off the very first time when I started working, I remember being very confused at one point, and very lost and looking out of the window. And my mother just came and said, "Stop being an abla nari, find a solution. You're the only one who can help yourself." And that has really stuck by me in my head, that just find a solution, snap out of it, and educate yourself. Nothing, today we have the internet at our fingertips. Educate yourself, upskill yourself, have conversations, develop a thick skin, communicate, learn to say no. And I mean, I'm not saying I haven't had, all the life experiences, but I just know one thing, that if you set your mind to it, especially women, because I think we women, I may sound biased, but I don't really care. I think we women are more sincere when we work. We're sincere. We are very disciplined. We like to do the job well. Men, by virtue of being men, it's the wiring that they have. They're more aggressive, and that's why I always feel that if we had, if all the nations of the world had women leaders, there would be no wars. I mean, I can guarantee you that. So yes, just don't be afraid, because we are the ones who limit ourselves. Just don't be afraid and develop a thick skin. I don't know what your first question was, Raily, though, before that.
It's pretty much that, how do we encourage more women to become entrepreneurs? But yeah, I think that is advice for any woman in any field, right? That's just fantastic advice.
Quickly just chiming in here, and I think, again, see, we are having this conversation. Where are the men? Why is it that when it comes to March, or when it comes to any women related conversations, why is it that we are taking the lead? Sure, we are interested, because it's something that's close to our heart. But where are the men? Don't they have sisters? Don't they have wives? Don't they have girlfriends and mothers? Don't they want a better place for us? And I get upset when the onus of educating the men is also on us.
Yes.
How to treat us. Come on. I mean, you've been given the same privilege. In fact, you have more privilege than us. So so that's a bit, it does take the Vicky out of you, when you say, when we're told that, why don't you tell the man how to treat you? Yes, you have to, but kuch to homework aap bhi karke aao jao na. Hum to kar hi rahe hain.
Show that. And no, I think I relate to what you're saying, because there have been so many times I've actually asked men who have been in leadership positions, what do you feel about DEIO? I'm super passionate about it, and I want women in the team, and what kind of a vision do you have for it? But the moment you go to the specifics of how do you really solve for it, they don't have an answer. So yeah, I mean, I think there is, again, I'm not generalizing, there are a lot of men who do, but then the hows are not something that they figure out yet. And I think you're very right. We probably have to get there where, we have more men speakers in these discussions as well, right?
I mean, I think, like right now, I think amongst all of us, the only thing that we are doing is we ensure that our own team members and colleagues are heard, their voices are heard.
Correct.
Again, another example of when I remember when we were hiring in our previous startup, and we had a very good candidate, and she said she wanted to leave every day by 7 p.m. and not work like the rest and not work throughout the night. And the manager who was hiring her came to me saying she wants to leave early, and that's a hindrance. And I was like, whose fault is that? You've not made it safe for women to work out there late. So obviously they want to go back early, right? So, I mean, I could go on and on, Riley. You'll have to cut me short here.
No, I think we all have such instances. I mean, there are so many instances that I've come across as well, which have really irked me in so many ways. But, again, probably we need a lot more time, and we should probably do that. We should catch up and talk about these instances, but it will take a lot more time to discuss them. Thanks, Vishakha, for that. Next, again, I'm coming back to Priyanka. I know there are a lot of heavy questions for Priyanka, but this one is on a positive note. I think blockchain as an industry, we are revolutionizing the industry in a lot of ways. And I was wondering, if there are, how do you think we as an industry can help build a more gender neutral workforce and increase the participation of women, in the industry?
Absolutely agree about blockchain, and in fact the ethos of blockchain itself is to democratize financial access to everyone, and it's only fair that this industry also solves this problem. While again there are measures being taken, but women representation is again a huge problem here. In fact, I think the other day I was reading this Cointelegraph report where it says that even though female participation in crypto has grown, but education gap is still a big problem in the space. And this is the problem. This lack of education, lack of education and awareness, is what we have to nip in the bud. So this is something I've said again and again, that one of the reasons behind lesser female participation in this space is because anyway, when Disha, as she rightly mentioned, that in tech there is like in STEM, there is lesser female participation. In traditional finance, again lesser female participation, and this technology is right at the intersect of both traditional finance, like finance and tech. So this means it needs double the work, right? So one thing that we can do as women working in this space is talk more about it, be more vocal about what all you are doing, because even today a lot of women are still under the assumption that you need to be a developer, or you need to have very, very specific skill sets to pursue a career in this domain, whereas it's not the case. I can't write a line of code, but I still have, like, touch wood, I still have a decent career in this space, right? So there are fabulous women working in policy, in legal, and what not. There are so many non-tech founders. Look at Vishakha. She she is an entrepreneur. So there are so many things you can do in the space, but as women we need to talk about our journey, keep be more and more vocal, because like when I was new in the space, this whole area looked less intimidating to me because I saw women there. Right, there were few women whose content actually motivated me to read more, and that kind of made this place look a little safe also, that okay, like somehow I'm not going to be so intimidated. So we need to do that more and make the sector a little less intimidating for the rest of the women.
I think that's very well put. We are over time, but I wanted to kind of go back to this year's theme, which is Break the Bias. And I want each of us here to take a pledge. So, starting with Vishakha, what do you intend to do in the coming year to break the bias?
I have intended to onboard more female talent in whatever stream that I continue to work in, be it NFTs, blockchain, or my own film productions.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Congratulations on that. And I think we'll all hold each other to that pledge. Disha, what are your plans to break the bias?
I think really for me, I think I'm going to have more conversation with the men of our society, with the men I interact with, to see if I can probably change their outlook. Because it's not actually, even though we women should be, first of all, we as women should know what we want. That's the gap actually. We don't know what we want. and hence we don't fight for what we want.
Hmm.
And secondly, create a space, like speak to the men who we interact with, who we have to spend so much time with, and see if they understand the concept of, equality, gender equality, and make women also at the same spot that they are. So that's what I'm going to do.
That's that's so awesome. I think, yeah, I really hope we are able to do that, Disha. Congratulations.
Thanks
Uh,
a lot, really.
Priyanka, you want to take the next pledge?
Yeah, sure. Um, See, I've been very fortunate to be at the right place at the right time, and met a lot of amazing women whose content, has helped me demystify crypto. Um, over the years, I've also met a lot of amazing, contributors in the space and learned from them. So my pledge is to pay it forward by creating more educational content and, demystify it. Now blockchain, Web3, and other concepts, create more awareness and more ecosystem for women to learn from each other and get onboarded to crypto.
And that's fantastic, Priyanka. I think we'd all like to share, for you to share all your knowledge with us. So please do. Thank you. Soumya, over to you. What is your pledge for this year?
Okay. Considering, I mean, I'm being in the function that I am in, there are two things. One, HR is like considered as a gatekeeper for talent. So, to adding on to what Vishakha said, I personally pledge to ensure that we do everything that is possible to increase diversity and increase the representation of women. And also, I want to ensure that we constantly work towards bridging the pay gap that exists, right? And that is a fact in this country. And we need to constantly be talking about it, educating leaders to ensure that there is, when you talk about, compensation, when you talk about promotions, it's always merit over gender. There's no two ways about it. The person is capable, then they're there. It's as simple as that. So, merit over gender, ensuring pay parity, as well as hiring more women.
Very, very, very important pledge. Coming to Shelly, and we'll probably close this conversation with your pledge. Shelly, please tell us what your pledge is.
Sure. I pledge to be more conscious and, like Soumya and Vishaka mentioned, onboard more female talent. Discrimination in any form is not good. We shouldn't support it. We shouldn't supply it. That is what I feel.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for spending all this time with me. I think this was such an interesting conversation. I'm hoping we'll be able to do this a lot more, even offline in the future for that matter, and be able to solve for this and increase participation of women in our industry, in the blockchain space, in the crypto space. And these are wonderful pledges. I'm hoping that we hold each other to the pledge till the end of the year, or till we get to next year. Thank you so much for your time. Um, all of you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Riley.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Relly.
Thank
You've
you,
been a
Raily.
great host, by the way, Relly. Thank you for that.
Yeah.